Right. Well, good morning. So today we're going to talk a little bit about crafting and telling your story. And I was just saying, it really matters in every aspect of our life to be able to share our story. Um, there's always a reason that we've gone through the things that we've gone through, and we have stories to share with other people that will give them hope, that may give them a different perspective shift, that may give them practical things that you discovered, coping strategies or ways to move through different seasons that you've been through in your life. And it's really powerful when we can help other people to experience what they're going through in life. And so I wondered, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how comfortable are you with telling your story? Some people are really great at sharing their stories, maybe online. Maybe you're great at crafting a post and putting in your story that way. But what about when it comes to talking to people in person, right? Um, what areas would you say that you are good? I feel like you're good. Okay, everybody's like, all right, I'll be a five. I'll be midway, right? Is there one area, are you more comfortable online or in person? How do you prefer to communicate with people? I think it's interesting when we take time and we kind of analyze that, right? I need to practice and tell it more. I'm more comfortable online. Okay. This is good. This is good for us to reflect and know about ourselves, right? Because we're probably not looking for opportunities to share our story if we're not comfortable. And so that means that we can absolutely be missing opportunities and letting them pass us by when things have presented themselves that would allow us to connect with people on a deeper way. And if your goal is to build a business, we know this is all about relationship buildings. And so we need to spend the time focused on that. Cheryl says, I can craft my sentences better when writing. I stumble and forget things I was sure I knew when talking face to face, right? And I 100% agree. I also can overthink when I am writing things, and it can take me a whole lot longer to write them. And I can write and rewrite and rewrite and rewrite. Okay, anybody else with me on that? Um, and so sometimes it's good to learn both sides because we've got to learn how to like think on our feet, how to respond and bring things forward. Um, and also, I think sometimes we worry so much about our words. And I know that many of you guys have shared that you're also the same place as I am, where you want you want God to use you in your life. And so I know that every opportunity that I have to speak, I can get really nervous about my own words, but I've tried to, ask him to speak through me in those moments. And it's incredible that sometimes I've said something that been like, oh, I don't know if that was the best thing to say, but that's what actually really connected with someone. Um, so it is great to learn both sides of it. Yeah. Online, I'm always afraid to share my true story, but I'm trying to be more bold about being authentic. That is it. Authenticity is huge. I love talking to people. Sometimes my excitement gets me saying too much, and the follow-ups and closing I have problems with and asking the bold questions. Yeah. All right. Love this. Perfect. Perfect. Well, here we go. We are going to dive in. Louis says, I am ready. Aim. Ready? Aim. That's it. We're preparing ourselves for this process, right? We're working towards our goals. And part of this is, yeah, Susie says, I feel like in person I just blab and blab, whereas online I get direct and to the point. True, right? It's easier to like pare it down, cut out the extras, but you just never know what is going to speak to someone. And people can feel your energy in person. And so, I've shared with you guys this statement that I hope sticks with you all the time is that facts will tell and stories will sell. But more importantly is I think that our stories really connect. And all of us, every single person has a story. But what if I told you that your story, the everyday experiences that you've had, right? Like I mentioned, these might be the key. to unlock something for someone else. This might be the truth and the key that they've been praying for right now. Maybe they need to see you scared and stumbling and fumbling over your words, but they've been secretly admiring you from afar. And so they want to know that they can do what you do. And you being real and not being perfect in that moment is something that can really connect with them. What if us being vulnerable can unlock someone else's belief that they're capable? That's an actually really powerful thought. And I hope that that makes you feel like it's worth it to put yourself in uncomfortable situations sometimes. Because what if the transformation that you've gone through, because we can't measure success by looking at the future. We can only measure success by looking at the past. And for so many of us, we've been through things that have helped us to grow, helped us to move forward, be in a different place. And we can truly inspire other people by talking about that transformation that we've been on. When I started, I was here, right? And we just don't realize sometimes how far we've come, whether it's coming to our mindset, whether it's coming to the circle that we surround ourselves with, right? Once you join, if you're in our business, I know once you join this business, you have leveled up your community, right? Would you guys agree? Drop a five in the chat if you would agree that you have leveled up your community and you surround yourself with a whole lot more positive people, driven people, dreamers, those who inspire you to move forward. I love this. Yes, flood the chat because it's true, and I think sometimes we get to a place where we almost take it for granted that we forget that the average person we're talking to does not have a community that believes in them, does not have a community that inspires them. There's most people are truly surrounded with people that are willing to settle in life. People that are willing to be satisfied with the status quo and not push themselves to be something better. And so that is why your story matters because the things that you take for granted and may just be blasé to you now, right? We don't even think twice about it. It's now been what? I don't know, a month and a half. I should look back at what date we started, but like a month and a half of us getting together every morning to talk about ways to make ourselves better. I would say that that makes us different than 99% of people in our life. And it is a blessing and it's a privilege that I don't take for granted because I know that one small group of committed people can change the world. And we are the world changers because we are continuing to invest in ourselves and continuing to grow our mindsets. And we're looking for the lessons. And we've already started to have that perspective shift that it may not be perfect and we may not instinctually respond that way. But I promise you, the more we do this, the more we talk about these concepts, the more it's going to cement itself in your mind. And you're going to start to catch yourself in the moment where you're saying, cancel, cancel, cancel. Actually, nope, rewind. I did not mean what I said. And you start to catch yourself and realize your words, your thoughts, your actions, your responses, they matter. And people around you start watching you and saying, how is it that they can be more resilient? How is it that they have the drive to move forward? Well, the only way they're going to find that out is by us. Oh, thank you, Dad. Um, most of us like don't realize that that's how powerful our story is because it tells the story of us coming from the beginning to where we are now. And where we are now is where most people want to be when they watch us, when they observe your character, when they see how you handle adversity, right? Think about how much of the world and how many people in your own circle you know of that suffer with depression and anxiety, right? It's become so common these days, and we've truly normalized it that we've got all these moments to celebrate mental health. But the reality is that it's hard to be in a place, I hope, for any of us to get on these calls and to be in a depressed or an anxious state. because we're not thinking about and talking about the things in your life that are making you anxious. We're talking about how we can move forward from that. We're talking about a solution for that. And so we have this forward thinking perspective that has it hopefully becoming commonplace for all of us. But in each of us, we have a unique story that is going to be the answer to what someone else is praying for. And us being vulnerable about it can unlock their belief in themselves that they can come from where we were to where we are, that they can also start and get to that place too. So I hope that today we can just kind of talk about some things about owning our story, really shaping and sharing our story in a way that is going to allow us to touch people. It's going to create, it's going to move them in a way that they want to have more connection, that they want to have more trust, that they want to take more action in their life. Because again, most people are in an environment, maybe you're in a work environment where you surround yourself with other people who are willing to settle, with other people who are willing to do the bare minimum, right? And what happens is when we start to expand our mindset and we start to dream bigger, we know that the world has this standard, but our standard is way up here, right? And so we're striving to be more than most people would ever even think is possible. So, what story have you been telling yourself about your story? Because many times we minimize our own story, right? So, are you trying to hide your story? Are you trying to minimize it? Are you embarrassed by your story? Are you trying to have a perfect story? Do you feel like you need to arrive before you can share your story? Think about where you're at with that. What's the reason that you are not, or maybe you are? What is driving you to share your story if you are sharing it consistently? That's it. Kenzie says, my story isn't good enough. It doesn't matter. It's crazy how we start to tell ourselves that, right? And again, it's where we're measuring our success by where we want to get to and the dreams that we have, where we need to stop and look back. And I want all of you guys to do this, look back in the rearview mirror right now and think about the person that you were when you stepped into business. The first time, okay? And maybe this is not your first go around. When you first stepped into business, the person that you were before that moment and the person that you are now, would you say you've grown? Night and day difference, exactly. Right? And we don't give ourselves enough credit for how much we've grown. We somehow tell ourselves we're the same person that we were when that is the furthest thing from the truth. Yeah, my first business was at 21. So I don't know how old you are now, but I'm sure that some time has passed and some things have changed. I struggle with my story. I'm not sure how much to share and what to share. Okay, very true. And so I hope this conversation can be useful for us and we can hash out together. So I encourage your interaction because, you may have an aha or a perspective that someone else needs today. So why does why storytelling works is is something for us to analyze and to say, what is it? Again, when we look at it from a psychological perspective, when we look at it from, a brain level perspective, yeah, that's a very good point. Aaron Clark always says, talk to the old you in your posts, find the old you. So I post like that often. Dear 2017, Devin, right? Yes. Dear 2013, Barb. I tried before. I had some customers that canceled. I got overwhelmed. I had a lot going on. I left, lots of watching God and praying, came back now stronger and trying again and not giving up. And that's it. It's about having that perseverance attitude. And so if we talk about our brain, excuse me, it's interesting to know that neuroscience and like studies have shown that that the brain lights up in 7 different areas. Sorry, when we're listening to a story, okay? interesting. It's like when you read these studies about what areas of the brain light up by what different triggers in life. I just found it interesting that the brain actually lights up in 7 different areas when you're listening to a story. If you are just hearing a story that is factual and not personal, your brain only lights up in 2 areas. Okay. So storytelling actually activates a part of our brain. It's called the limbic brain. And in the limbic brain is where your emotions are and your decision making happens. So this is why, and especially for the women here, you probably will relate to this more, is that you feel a movie. Okay. When you watch it and you feel it, or maybe it's a TED Talk. It's something that just really moves you and you feel it in your gut. Like your whole body can physically imagine, you can picture, you can see yourself in that story. And we end up like it's when we love those movies that make us cry, right? We love it when we're moved to tears or to laughter or to action. And so we know that our brain is responding with that emotional side of our brain. And so it's interesting that if you understand it from a science perspective, that you can actually cause people to have those like warm, feel good, relatable moments with you when they start telling their story. And so I think that people don't decide with logic, right? None of us really do. We decide with emotions first, and then we almost like justify that decision with logic. So again, when you're watching a movie, you're not deciding like if this is realistic necessarily. You first respond with emotions, right? I know I see anything happening with kids or with grief, and it just connects with me. And so it makes me very emotional. And it feels good. It's funny how we can love to watch a movie that makes us cry. It's like that emotional release and that emotional connection, and we value it. So thinking about that in application to telling our story is, again, we can move people in an emotional way by telling something that's real, that's relatable. And so when we tell a story, well, it brings walls down, right? Yesterday we talked a little bit about that, like people build up their walls, their defenses and whatnot, oftentimes. And so when you tell a story, it brings people's walls down. And people lower their defenses, but they also open their heart to hearing you and to connecting with you because they see themselves in you or in your story. And so it's it's again when we apply it to our business and to sales and to sharing what it is that we have, there's a big difference between saying buy this supplement and saying I was exhausted, frustrated, and feeling behind every day. I didn't realize I could feel better until I gave this a try. And now I'm showing up for my family again. Like 2 completely different emotion reactions out of people. Would you agree? I hope you would agree with that. And it's like, it's finding a way to weave your story into, yes, we're trying to sell our supplements, our products, whatever it is that you have, but the story that comes behind that is really powerful. And it's the story that sells. So write that down somewhere. Facts tell, stories sell. Facts tell, benefits sell, right? And so our story is to share what have the benefits been for me. So that's what's going to sell. That's what's going to connect. That's what's going to build trust. And these are all things that we're needing if we're planning to build a long-term relationship with someone. And I don't know about you, but I want customers for life. I want team members who, decide to change the world with me. I want friends that are loyal, that, are going to be people that I'm going to know for a long time and I'm going to do a lot of life with. One of my favorite things when I came to this company was when Chelsea said to me, I'm so excited to grow old here with you. And I look at each and every one of you guys on this call and I think, I am excited to grow old with you. And we're going to look back and we're going to remember moments when you jumped on, into the chat and you shared something personal, when we prayed together over something that you're going through in your life. I hope we're going to run into each other in the hallways at conventions and on vacations and all the things. And we'll have a deep connection that will bond us because we've shared our stories. So I don't want this to be me talking to you guys every day. I love hearing your stories and your feedback and you unmuting or jumping into the chat because that's how we get to know each other, right? And so people in your life are watching you and wanting to hear your story. And it can be a place that makes us timid, right? And we hold ourselves back too much. And I'm guilty of it just as much. So how are we going to shape our story? How are we going to have a story that converts from just being a story to helping someone see themselves in it or wanting to have what it is that you have? There's no need for us going into a drama, right? Like we all have drama and trauma. And so there's no need for us to bring drama into it or to just spend countless hours talking about all of the struggles that we've been through in life, because I know we've all been through struggles. But we do need structure to how we share our story. We do need heart, to have that care and that genuine love behind us telling our story and being real. So, some of the elements of telling our story is that we have to be willing to talk about what happened before. What was in the past? What were you experiencing? Where did you come from? What's your relatable struggle? Because most people will see themselves in the past version of your story more than they will in the present. Because you're already in a place where you're thinking forward and you're wanting to grow and change. And maybe that is still just a seed in their mind right now. Okay. So, what were you experiencing before? Being honest and being real and not perfect actually will help people to care and understand you so much better, right? People want to be invited into your journey, not once you've arrived for you to tell them how to get there, right? Remember that. People want to be invited in on the journey. And this is why it's so powerful, especially in the beginning, when you start your journey, that you pick up the phone and you call people and you invite them in on the journey. And you say, I'm just getting started, but I would love to do this with you. Like, let's run, let's figure it out together. That's a whole lot less intimidating for someone that feels overwhelmed by the concept of, I don't even know what you do and I don't know how to do it. To think that you've already been doing it for how many years and you've already arrived is more difficult than them seeing themselves in the beginning stages of your story. And so when you go back and you tell your story by talking about those beginning stages, that's where they can see themselves coming in. And then you're inviting them and they're knowing that you're going to understand where they're at. So, what were you experiencing before? And thinking about the pain points of your story. I was overwhelmed. I was stuck. I was financially stressed. I wanted more time with my kids, but I couldn't see a way to get there. I was skeptical of anything like this. You know, those are all very real and relatable phrases and things that others can say, "Oh yeah, yeah, that's exactly where I am." Right? And so the goal for us is really just to be human, to be real and relatable, to name the pain that we've experienced that other people are probably feeling silently right now. So we're going to tell our before story of like, this is where I came from. This is how it started. This is why I wanted more. So this is kind of the second piece of it, is the why, is the breakthrough, the moment of change or discovery, the moment that you found something different, the moment that you grew your new brain cell, right? Because that happens so much in our journeys is we grow these new brain cells. So what shifted for you? What did you try? How did it feel? What triggered for that to happen? I didn't think it would work, but I tried it. You know, something about maybe the person that you joined with, something about their story stuck with you, connected with you. I couldn't stop dreaming about it. You know, I started sleeping better after 3 days, and that changed everything. If you're talking about a product, right? So, what was the moment of breakthrough? First, you have the pain, then you have the breakthrough, and it's the goal is to show that turning point. It's not about hype, it's about hope. It's about showing people that things can shift, that one moment can give you that breakthrough that you need. And then because of that, so what's the result? What is it that you're inviting them into? Okay? Because of that, where like it's where you are now. What's possible for them now? Now I have more energy. Now I have more peace. Now I have a little extra income that's taken the pressure off. And the result can also be like, I still don't have it all figured out, but I found something that's changing things for me. I'm in the process of becoming. So if you think about your story and maybe like write it down in this way, that it's going to be about your before, about the struggle that you've had. It's going to be about the breakthrough, that moment when you discovered something different. You had a new thought process, you experienced a new product, whatever it was, and then the because of that, like the result story. And that result story is also an invitation for them to come on that journey too. So our goal is to paint the possibilities, to tell them about this is what your future could look like. This is how you could feel if you were taking this product, right? And so we're going to show them the possibilities and we're going to offer a next step. I think so many of us, and you guys have shared in the chat, right? We think, I don't have a story yet. My story doesn't matter. I haven't succeeded enough to share. My story just isn't special. And I want you to hear me loudly that it is fear that tries to keep us silent. Because again, when you understand this whole world and this whole realm, there are forces that do not want you to succeed. They do not want you to share your story because they don't want other people to have that breakthrough, right? That is just how the enemy works. He is always after our mind and he's trying to hold everybody back. And I will say this is that I truly believe the devil doesn't have to fight for us until we start to step forward in life. And so when you start to step forward in life, he doesn't want you telling other people that they can get out too, that they're made for something bigger too. And so when you hold yourself back, it is potentially the devil winning in someone else's life because God was trying to use you as a catalyst to help take them into the next phase of who they're supposed to be, and you stayed silent. And I hope that that weighs heavy on you because it does for me. It's not about us, right? We get into our heads and it's so much about how we're going to feel telling our story. The purpose of us telling our story is not for us. The purpose of us telling our story is for someone else. And so I challenge you to be bold and to know that your story has purpose and value. And God didn't bring you this far to leave you this far. So your story's not over, but He also didn't bring you this far for others to not be able to see how far you've come. So we need to let that be visible. We need to, again, reframe these thoughts and these fears and these doubts that we have. And we need to reframe it knowing that we are in the process of becoming. Our story is unfolding and someone needs to see it in progress, right? People don't relate to perfection, they relate to progress. So I don't want to wait until I've arrived and I'm here and guess what I've accomplished? I need to talk to people about my journey on the way, right? And it was interesting. I had my daughter has a friend who came for a play date the other day, and her mom and her grandma came to pick her up. And they have known me since I started on this journey. And the mom was one of the first people that I shared what I was doing with. And I was nervous and I was scared and I didn't know what I was up to. And every time I see her and she asks how things are going, I've kind of given her glimpses of little pieces of my story. And they came over to pick up their daughter the other day, and we sat in my kitchen. I've had to wash the clothes because the kids went outside in the rain. So they were waiting for their daughter's clothes to dry. Anyways, we're sitting there and we were just chatting, and it was so interesting to me because they were telling me my story because they had watched it happen from the beginning, because I allowed them in. I allowed them to see those different parts. And as much as I wasn't preaching my story at them or shoving it down their throat, to hear my story told back to me from someone else from an outside perspective, it was a really humbling experience. And so I want you to know that there's other people that are tracking your story, even when you're not. And they're seeing growth in you that you may not even be acknowledging for yourself. And it is really incredible when you realize that your story does matter, right? And sometimes we need those little reminders. So it was just a reminder for me in that moment of like, I need to keep telling my story, because they got to hear about my $145 paycheck before they then heard about my $31,000 paycheck, and so they knew that's real. Like, they heard the story all the way along. And so it wasn't like all of a sudden overnight success created this, massive, unrealistic, unattainable. They could see themselves in the 145 check, even though they might not see themselves in the $31,000 check. And anyhow, it was really a good reminder for me of how important it is to tell our stories, and how other people are watching and they're taking things from your story and they're being inspired. And guess what? Grandma became a customer yesterday. So, it's like people are watching, and it's been 15 months of them watching from the get-go, but it's now they could see themselves in that story or creating their own story. So we think to ourselves, all these things that allow us to hold ourselves back. But our story is unfolding, and people do need to see that progress. So invite them in on the journey, tell them about the tough stuff, tell them about the things that make you nervous, because that's the part they can relate to the most. So as we're telling our story, right, when it comes to sales, we need to speak to their heart first, and then show them the step to get to the next place. So we need to use micro stories. Like, it doesn't have to be this big, massive transformation. We need to tell the micro stories of how this feels so different than what I was doing before. I'm having more time with my kids now. The little micro stories that drip on them. And I love the concept of drip, right? We oftentimes were like, this is the moment. I'm going to tell my story, and we barf, right? Like, we barf all over them with this story that's got 18 different elements, and maybe they're going to relate to one, but maybe they're going to be overwhelmed by the rest. And don't forget, an overwhelmed or confused mind says no. So we have to break it down into bite-sized chunks and use these kind of micro stories. We don't have to have a TED talk about our life. You know, it's 2 to 3 sentences that are planting a seed, right? It's like a story seed. And we say things like, I started looking for better sleep, or a friend of mine was struggling with inflammation. And two, like, maybe you relate it to what they're saying. A friend of mine was struggling with inflammation too, just like you're talking about. But she tried our FiberWise and she saw a huge difference so fast. right? So, what's the micro story that you can tell? Telling someone else's story is also so powerful. So, weave in the stories. Talk about other people that have a story that's so drastically different from yours, because maybe the person you're talking to doesn't see themselves in your story, but they can see themselves in someone else's story. If you're talking to a single mom and you're not a single mom, share a story of a single mom. If you maybe you don't struggle with cholesterol, but someone else struggles with cholesterol, share their story, right? And when you're sharing your story with someone, another really important thing to do is to ask them for their story in return. It's a two-way street. And sometimes we're like, the door is open. They're asking for our story. And we like dive in and we barf with our story. And then we just leave that hanging, like they're going to make a decision now. But again, this is a relationship. And so we need to talk to each other. So we need to ask for their story. What's something that you've been wanting? What's something that you've been striving towards? What's something that you want to change or feel better about? What's something that, you struggle with your health? And position the opportunity into the story, right? To say things like, maybe it's someone who is wanting community. And it's what's helped me more than anything is the community. It's the accountability. That's why I started sharing it. That's why I started inviting other people to do this with me, because I knew that for me, community and accountability was great. And I wanted you to have the opportunity to have that too. Yeah. Tasha, I see what you're saying. Those Wellness Wednesdays have been amazing. And I think again, we need to get there. Yeah. The FiberWise has absolutely changed my bathroom time, weeks without to going weekly. Wow, that is powerful. Crazy. That's a story, right? We don't talk about poop very often, but it's something that we all do every day and it relates, right? And there's people that struggle with that more than you know. So when we're talking to people and we're selling things, like sales psychology says that people are more likely to say yes when they see themselves in the story. So the more you personalize your story, the more powerful your share is going to be. So tell it from a personal place. Incorporate the elements that you know connect with them. Like yesterday, we were talking about building rapport is when you have at least one common point in common. And even better when you can have two common points, right? So find the common points, weave those into your story, how you're talking about the person that you are, really talking about the person that they are, so that they can actually visually see themselves in your story. Does that make sense? So I hope that as we go into our interactions, we can start thinking about that. And it is like a more abstract thought concept is like you've got to be thinking ahead of the words that you're about to say before you say them while you're saying other words, right? So as you start telling your story, start thinking, who is this person? How would this connect with them? What points do we have in common? And then make sure you talk about those because it's going to allow them mentally to just start to see themselves in your story. And when you think about it, again, the truths are the truths are the truths, and what is working has always worked. And it's interesting that Jesus also taught through parables, right? Those were stories that he was sharing that had just amazing eternal truths. Why did he talk in stories? Because the story opens the heart. The story allowed people to see themselves inside of it. Are you the person that buries the talents or are you the person that turns it into something? Right? His stories made people think about who they were and see themselves as one character or another. The prodigal son, it's like, who are you? Are you the welcoming father? Are you the prodigal son? What stage of the prodigal journey are you at? Are you working for, in the pigsties because that's all that you can do? Or are you remembering who you are and you are on your way back, even with your head hung in shame, because you know who you truly are, right? Like there's think about where you can see yourselves in these stories. It's why Jesus used them. It's why we need to use them. So it's not about delivering bullet points of like, this is what you need to do. This is the fact about the product. Da 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 da. Like that is not going to connect with people. That's not going to sell them. Those are facts. Facts will tell them. So we have to tell stories that people feel like they live inside of, right? And again, I just think it's so cool that like Jesus told these parables of like the kingdom of heaven is like this. A man had two sons, right? Like when he starts off these stories that he told, these parables, like it was think about when he said a woman searched her whole house, right? Like the way that he led into this conversation was really very here's the characters. Who are you? Right? Do you see yourself in that situation? So if the greatest of all times truly used stories to lead people to the truth, we need to do the same and we can do the same. And our story, if we tell it in a way that is with love and with authenticity and like just real, raw, genuine from the heart, that is our light. And I know that we're called to be a light. So we have to channel that, and bring that and look for opportunities to present that. So if we were to make this into a challenge for today, and I asked you to write your kind of three-part before, breakthrough, and because of that. Okay. I want to challenge you to share it in your notes, like to write it down somewhere. And then I want you to voice record it. Like this might sound really intimidating, but I feel like if we do this, this is going to be a tool that we can use that is going to explode our businesses. And so I want you to take time in your notes, write your three-part story. Okay? Where did you start? What was your breakthrough? And where are you now? Because of that, where are you now? So if you think about it like three B's, before, breakthrough, because of that. And write this down. Work on crafting that story in your notes. Okay? This is my step-by-step walkthrough to you. Then you are going to take your notes of your three-part story and you are going to copy and paste it in a messenger to yourself. Okay? Are you guys with me? You go in, you search your own name, and you start a message to yourself. Okay? You're going to paste that message that you put in your notes into your message to yourself. So now it's going to be reading as a text in your personal story. And then you're going to read the story that you've written of your life to yourself. You're going to press and hold your voice record button, and you can literally read through what you've written. Okay. For those of you guys that are telling me that you're too nervous, you forget what you want to say, you stumble over your words, this is how you practice. This is what I have done for the longest time. When I started and these products were all new to me, I started copying things from the website and doing this into my notes and reading it to myself and creating a voice note of me reading the facts that I wanted to share, this and weaving in the story that I wanted to share, and not giving myself an excuse that I screwed it up, right? So using these notes to yourself is really, really good if you don't do this already. So you're going to record it and you're going to perfect it. You can delete it and redo it as many times as you want. But I'm telling you, even if this takes you an hour today to craft, once you have it done, this is a tool that you can use over and over. And so then to send it to someone else, you're going to press and hold on your voice note and you're going to forward it. And you're going to forward it to whoever you want. And maybe this is going to be your vulnerable moment where you forward this to someone and you add a note and you say, I've been really trying to figure out how to share my story of what this business has done for me. And I'm super nervous about it because I don't normally put myself out there like that. And I've never made a voice note like this before, but I wondered if I could share it with you and if you would give me your feedback. All right. And you can forward it to your support team. You can forward it to your best friend. You can forward it to your mom. You can forward it to anyone, right? But this is a way that you can let people hear your story without feeling like you're shoving it down their throat. It's you coming from a place of like, I'm a little bit intimidated about this. I want to share this story with the world, but I'm starting with the people that I know, like, and trust. Can I trust you enough to listen to this and just give me your honest feedback? And maybe you're going to get some constructive criticism that you'll be like, hey, I'm going to incorporate that. And you're going to go back and re-record. But it could be really powerful for you to get this, to figure it out for yourself, and it will help you to be able to share your story. And what I would love is tomorrow morning, if a few of you would be willing to share your story, okay? Your before, your breakthrough, and your because of that. And you don't need to feel intimidated with this group. I hope you feel super comfortable and accepted and supported through this group, right? None of us are here to judge each other because I guarantee you, those of you who do choose to share tomorrow are going to inspire others to share as well. Yeah, Toya, go ahead.
Oh, there we go. I'm unmuted. All righty. Good morning, Royals. All right. So I will say Barb has kind of gotten me to do this before in different ways, and it has been very, very fruitful. I will say that when you first started this business, ask yourself the people, especially like when it comes to family, who's been resistant towards watching you grow, because some people can't come along for the ride. And so we don't want to expose ourselves to those people. We want to be mindful of the people we know that really, truly have our back. Because unfortunately,
Oh, we lost you, Toya.
do you see how the enemy always tries to come for me? But y'all, you know I am a conqueror, so I will come again and again and again. So my advice was that you share with people who you truly know is your support system. And when you get even braver, you share with the people who constantly always give you resistance, because then you show and you prove to yourself that they don't have that kind of power over you and your mindset, because you know why you're here and what you're doing and where you're going to go. I feel like we need to build that muscle within ourselves. Society lately, I watch it all the time. I have an 18-year-old son, and he is he's from the COVID babies. And I'm like, okay, I can see it. It's the less eye contact, it's the less needing people's approval in person, but it's more like everything I can do from behind the screen. And I want to say to you right now, this is the time that we need to be the boldest in our lives. This is the time where we need to literally be shouting it from the rooftop what we believe and what we are doing, because you are going to save somebody. I don't care if it's a save of where someone's at mentally, where they're at spiritually, where they're at in business, where they're at financially. There is going to be an increase. If God brought you to it, He will bring you through it. So let your share be the light that somebody needs. It's so detrimental to so many people right now. And even on my worst days, when I do an activity like this, I prove to myself exactly how strong I am. If y'all knew how my life was lifing right now, I do not look like what I'm going through, and I don't look like what I've been through, because I understand the assignment that I have, and that I'm supposed to push through, and that I'm supposed to trust God anyway, like He says in Proverbs 3 verses 5 and 6. Lean not on your own understanding. Jump out there on faith. Let your faith get into action and watch what God will do. Sometimes all He's waiting for is to see that we trust Him enough to do the actions, to be disciplined, to be obedient. The reward, the blessing is on the other side of our obedience.
Hmm.
And I heard someone the other day say, when you create an altar of just complete trust and faith in what God says and what God's going to do and His truth, you unlock all of the gems and the blessings that He has for your life. And I truly believe this. So when you do this activity and you're going to voice note, walk walk around and let your blood flow and let your breathing get a little bit up there, and then leave your message. It makes such a difference. Don't just sit on your couch while you're watching something and voice note somebody, because people will feel that. Be the change that you want to see, and you will be the change that someone needs. That's what I got for you guys this morning.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And that is a really good caution too, that there are some people who are not welcome on the journey and who are not the best people. Sometimes we seek their approval so much, and they're not actually the people that are going to give us the confirmation that we need, right? So,
That's
very good.
exactly it. Take this in, Barb. This is the if everybody remembers this, while you sometimes are praying for people to level up, people are praying for your downfall. They don't necessarily want what you have, they just don't want you to have it. So be aware of who is in your immediate circle, be aware of who you're exposing yourself to. And remember, like when you're even when I'm putting up posts, I always pray, Lord, let this touch the one or the many that need to hear my message. Let this resonate with somebody and let them, get what they need out of it for your glory. When you keep putting him in the mix, it's like more times than not, you're not going to get that much pushback because God's hands in it, because
Mhm.
He is the ultimate in everything.
Yeah. What is it? Those who leave everything in God's hands will see God's hands in everything, right? And I think that's very true. Very good points to make. I appreciate that. Danielle's just saying, everything we've been talking about with the way our brains process stories compared to facts was something I learned years ago in a psychology class. It's so incredibly powerful to understand this concept. It's like a secret weapon that disarms our audience and it opens their mind to hear what we're saying. Thank you for the reminder. I am so glad to hear that. Yes, I agree. I think it's so interesting. We need to understand a little bit of psychology and incorporate that in just so we can be wise and move through situations as quickly and easily as possible. So, all right. Well, I'm glad you jumped in, Trish. All right, I'm going to open it up. Is there anybody else that wants to close us out in prayer this morning? Doesn't have to be anything complex, but sometimes just voicing your gratitude in front of other people is a really powerful thing. All right. Well, I will close us out. Dear Lord, I just thank you for the opportunity for us to be reminded that our story matters. I thank you, God, for the example that you set, even that we talked about this morning, of the way that you shared stories and the story that you created with your life that has allowed the story of each of our lives to be changed too. And I thank you, God, that is how powerful stories are, and that our story could be used as a catalyst for change in someone else's life. And so I pray that we will just look for opportunities to share our story where it's not about us, it's about them, that we share from a place of love and a place of care and wanting to help people experience the growth that we've had and to come alongside of us in the journey. And I pray, Lord, for the people that are in our lives that are watching us right now, that are admiring the bold steps forward that so many have taken in starting a business like this, or in just trying to become a better person, investing in personal development, and just knowing that we are not stuck where we are, that we can always grow. I thank you, God, that your standards are so much higher than everything that we see around us in the world and in other people, and that we feel that call. We feel that unsettling of knowing that we're made for more. And I thank you, God, that we are stepping forward and we are writing our stories right now, even in the midst of it. For those that feel like they're in a struggle and they feel like their story doesn't hold value, I thank you, God, for the story that you're writing in their life, the things that you're doing behind the scenes, because even when we can't see it, you're working. And so I just pray that we will press in, and that we will acknowledge and appreciate every aspect of our stories, the challenges, as well as the good stuff, and that we'll know that our story has purpose, and that we'll be bold enough to share it with other people, and that it'll help someone have the breakthrough that we've experienced or that we still might be seeking to experience. And I thank you, God, that we've been put in a position and that we've been given a business, that you've placed us here for such a time as this, so that our story can be a light to the world around us. So I pray that we'll do that with boldness and conviction today. And I thank you, Lord, that you are going to give us the strength that even for those who right now might be feeling uncomfortable about writing their story or telling their story, that you would just reveal it to them in a new way, that they would be proud of who they have become and what they've walked through, and that they would feel the gratitude that you allowed us to go through the struggles to have the growth that we've had. So thank you for helping us see the lessons in everything. And thank you that your plans are always good. So bless us as we go out into this day. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, guys, have a beautiful day. And we will see you back here tomorrow. But again, that challenge is I am really hoping that a few of you guys will come and be willing to share your story tomorrow. So message me ahead if you want to make yourself accountable and say it's going to be me. I'm going to share my story. And I hope that you just will feel the conviction, even if you don't message me ahead of time when you show up here tomorrow. And I can't wait to hear your stories. All right. Have a great day, guys. We'll see you tomorrow.